Daniel woke to the sound of gentle humming. Daniel woke to the sound of gentle humming. The pain in his side had faded to a dull ache, wrapped in bandages and medical patches. He was lying in his bunk aboard the Meadowlark, and for a moment, he could not remember how he had gotten there. Then the memories came flooding back. The facility, the escape, the standoff with the Korath commander, the consortium ships arriving just in time. He sat up slowly, wincing as his wound protested the movement. The door to his cabin was open, and he could see into the main corridor. Kira was there, checking something on a datapad. When she noticed him moving, she looked up with an expression that mixed relief with annoyance. "You are awake. Good. I was starting to think you were going to sleep forever. How long was I out?" "Almost 12 hours. You lost a lot of blood. If Saren had not known some basic field medicine, you probably would not have made it." Daniel processed this. "Saren helped me?" "She did. Apparently, the Vishon have some natural healing compounds in their biology. She used some of her own resources to stabilize your wound until we could get proper medical supplies." He did not know what to say to that. He had risked his life to save her, and she had turned around and saved his. There was a symmetry to it that felt almost poetic. "Where are we?" he asked. "About 2 hours out from Vera 7. We are going to dock there, get you to a proper medical facility, and figure out what comes next." Daniel nodded and pushed himself to his feet. His body ached, but he could move. That was enough. He made his way out of the cabin and into the main living area of the ship. Saren and Yili were sitting together on the small couch that served as the crew's common space. The mother's glow had returned to its full brightness, and her membrane wings were beginning to heal. She held her daughter close, one arm wrapped protectively around the child's shoulders. They looked up as Daniel entered. Yili's face broke into a wide smile. "The brave human is awake." She jumped off the couch and ran to him, wrapping her small arms around his legs in a tight hug. Daniel was surprised by the gesture. He was not used to physical affection from anyone, let alone an alien child he had only known for a few days. But he placed a hand gently on her head and allowed himself a small smile. "I am awake," he agreed. "Thanks to your mother, apparently." Saren rose from the couch and approached him. She moved slowly, still recovering from her ordeal, but there was strength in her steps that had not been there before. She stopped in front of Daniel and looked at him with her 4 luminous eyes. "You saved my life," she said. "You risked everything for a stranger, for people you had never met and owed nothing to. I do not understand why." Daniel considered the question. It was the same question Yili had asked him when they first met. The same question everyone seemed to ask when they heard about humans doing something that defied logic or self-interest. "There was a colony evacuation," he said slowly. "Years ago. A reactor failure on a mining world. I was part of the transport crew. We were supposed to get everyone out before the radiation became lethal." He paused, the memory still painful, even after all this time. "There was a child. A little girl. She got separated from her family during the chaos. I found her, but I could not get her to the ship in time. The doors closed. The transport left, and I watched through the window as the radiation took her." The room was silent. Kira looked down at her feet. She had never heard this story before. "I could not save her," Daniel continued. "I tried, but I failed. I have carried that failure with me ever since." He looked at Yili, still clinging to his leg. "When your daughter came to me, asking for help, I saw a chance to do what I could not do before. To save someone. To make one right choice in a universe full of wrong ones." Serene's eyes glistened with tears. "Among my people, there is no word for what you did. The Veshan value safety above all else. We do not risk ourselves for strangers. We run from danger rather than toward it. What you did is beyond our understanding. She reached out and took Daniel's hand in hers. Her skin was cool and smooth, and her touch was gentle. But I think I am beginning to understand something about humans, she said. You are broken in ways that other species are not. You carry wounds that never fully heal. But those wounds drive you to protect others, to prevent them from experiencing the same pain you have felt. Daniel did not know if she was right. He had never thought about it in those terms. But her words settled into him, and something inside him eased, just a little. Maybe we are broken, he admitted. But maybe that is what makes us fight so hard. Saren nodded slowly. Perhaps. Or perhaps you are blessed in ways the rest of the galaxy cannot see. Either way, I am grateful. My daughter is alive because of you. I am alive because of you. I will never forget what you have done. Yili looked up at Daniel with her 4 bright eyes. Will I see you again? Daniel crouched down to her level, ignoring the pain in his side. If you ever need help again, you know where to find me. I will come. That is a promise. The child hugged him again, and this time Daniel returned the embrace properly. 2 hours later, the Meadowlark docked at Varus 7. Word of the rescue had already spread. The consortium forces had raided the Dreth 4 facility after receiving the intelligence from Talos. Dozens of prisoners had been freed. The Korath Syndicate had suffered a major blow to their operations. And at the center of it all was a story about a human cargo hauler who had risked everything to save a child's mother. As Daniel walked through the station, he noticed species looking at him differently. Not with the usual indifference or suspicion that humans often received in the outer territories. Instead, there was something else in their eyes. Curiosity, respect, maybe even a little awe. A consortium official stopped him before he reached the medical wing. The official was a tall, thin being with silver skin and eyes like polished glass. He held a datapad in his slender fingers. You are Daniel Grant? The human who led the rescue? I am. The official studied him for a moment. I am required to file a report on this incident. Under species observations, I am supposed to note anything relevant about the beings involved. He paused. What would you like me to write about humans? Daniel thought about it. Write whatever you want. I just did what needed to be done. The official nodded slowly. I see. He made a note on his datapad, then looked up again. For what it is worth, I think I understand humans a little better now. You are difficult to classify. You act against your own interests. You display excessive emotional attachment to strangers. You willingly suffer for causes that offer you no benefit. He put the datapad away. But perhaps that is what makes you valuable. Perhaps that is why the galaxy needs you. Daniel did not respond. He simply nodded and continued toward the medical wing. Later, after his wound had been properly treated and he was resting in a recovery room, Kira came to see him. She sat in the chair beside his bed and looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. So what now? She asked. Where do we go from here? Daniel thought about the question. A week ago, his answer would have been simple. Find the next job. Keep moving. Keep surviving. But something had changed in him. The weight he had carried for so many years felt lighter now. Not gone, but lighter. We go wherever we are needed, he said finally. There are others out there who need help. Others who have no one to turn to. Maybe we can be there for them. Kira raised an eyebrow. You want to become some kind of rescue crew? I do not know what I want to become, but I know I cannot go back to pretending nothing matters. She was quiet for a long moment. Then a small smile crossed her face. Fine, but if we are going to keep doing stupid, dangerous things, we are going to need a bigger ship. Daniel laughed, and the sound surprised him. He could not remember the last time he had laughed somewhere on the station. A little girl with 4 eyes and glowing blue skin was reunited with her mother, safe and whole. And somewhere in the vastness of space, a story was spreading. A story about humans, about their stubbornness, about their compassion, about their refusal to look away when someone needed help. It was a small story in the grand scheme of things. But small stories have a way of growing, and the galaxy was beginning to pay attention. The maintenance shaft was dark and narrow. Daniel crawled forward, his sides screaming with every movement. Blood continued to seep from the wound, leaving a dark trail on the metal beneath him. Behind him, Kira moved carefully, keeping one hand on his leg to make sure he did not collapse. Ahead of them, Saren pulled herself forward with whatever strength she had left. The alarm continued to wail throughout the facility. Daniel could hear boots pounding on the floors below them. The Korath were searching every corridor, every room, every possible hiding place. It was only a matter of time before they thought to check the maintenance shafts. How much farther to the docking bay? Kira whispered. Daniel checked the mental map he had memorized. About 100 meters. There should be an access hatch near Bay 7. Can you make it? He did not answer. The truth was, he did not know. The pain was getting worse, and his vision was starting to blur at the edges. But stopping was not an option. If he stopped, they all died. They reached a junction where the shaft split in 2 directions. Daniel paused, trying to remember which way led to the docking bay. His thoughts were becoming scattered, hard to hold on to. He shook his head, forcing himself to focus. Left, he said. Go left. They turned and continued crawling. The shaft grew even narrower here, barely wide enough for Daniel's shoulders. He felt the walls pressing against him, and a wave of panic threatened to rise in his chest. He pushed it down and kept moving. Ahead, Saren suddenly stopped. I see light, she whispered. There is an opening. Daniel moved forward until he could see past her. She was right. About 20 meters ahead, a thin line of light marked the edge of an access hatch. Through the gap, he could hear the sounds of the docking bay, the hum of machinery, and the distant voices of workers. That is our way out, he said. But we need to be careful. There will be guards. They approached the hatch slowly. Daniel positioned himself at the front, ignoring the pain that flared with every movement. He pressed his eye to the gap and looked out. The docking bay was below them. The Meadowlark sat on the landing platform, looking undamaged. Between the ship and their position, he counted 8 guards. More were probably on the way. How do we get past them? Kira asked. Before Daniel could answer, a small sound came from somewhere below. It was faint, almost impossible to hear over the noise of the bay. But Daniel recognized it immediately. It was Yili's voice. He looked down through a grating in the floor of the shaft and saw the child moving through the bay. She had left her hiding place on the ship and was crawling behind cargo containers, making her way toward a control panel on the wall. What is she doing? Kira hissed. Daniel watched as Yili reached the panel and began working on it with her small fingers. The Vishan were natural mechanics, able to navigate tight spaces and work with electronics from a young age. It was how Yili had escaped the slavers in the first place. Now she was using those same skills again. Suddenly, half the lights in the docking bay went dark. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in red. The guards looked around in confusion, their attention drawn away from the Meadowlark. Then a secondary door on the far side of the bay opened unexpectedly. The guards shouted and moved toward it, expecting an attack from that direction. Yili had created a distraction. Now, Daniel said. We go now. He kicked open the access hatch and dropped down to the floor below. The impact sent a shock of pain through his injured side, and he nearly fell. But he forced himself to stay upright and turned to catch Saren as she dropped after him. Kira came last, landing in a crouch with her weapon ready. Saren saw Yeely across the bay. "My child," she breathed. "We will get to her," Daniel said. "Stay close." They moved through the confusion, using the cargo containers as cover. The guards were still focused on the secondary door, trying to figure out what had happened. Daniel led them in a wide arc, circling around toward where Yeely was hiding. They found her behind a large shipping crate, her small body pressed against the metal. When she saw her mother, her 4 eyes went wide with joy and relief. She opened her mouth to cry out, but Saren reached her first and pulled her into a tight embrace, covering the sound with her own body. "My baby," Saren whispered, tears streaming down her face. "My brave baby." Yeely clung to her mother, her glow brightening for the first time since Daniel had met her. "I found humans," she said. "I found brave humans to help us." Saren looked at Daniel over her daughter's head. There was something in her eyes that he could not quite identify. Gratitude was part of it. But there was also wonder, as if she was looking at something she did not fully understand. "We need to keep moving," Daniel said. The pain in his side was getting worse. He could feel himself weakening with every passing moment. "The ship is just ahead." They started toward the Meadowlark. They were almost there when a voice rang out behind them. "Stop." Daniel turned. A Karath commander stood at the edge of the bay, flanked by a dozen armed soldiers. He was larger than the others, his gray skin marked with scars from countless battles. His black eyes fixed on Daniel with cold fury. "You have caused a great deal of trouble, human. I am impressed. But your escape ends here." The soldiers raised their weapons. Daniel looked at the distance to the ship. 20 meters. An eternity when facing a firing squad. He made a decision. "Get to the ship," he told Kira quietly. "Get them out of here." "Daniel, no. That is an order." He looked at her, and something passed between them. Understanding. Acceptance. "I will hold them off." Before she could argue, he stepped forward, walking toward the Korath commander. His hands were empty. His side was bleeding. He had nothing left to fight with except words. "You want to kill me?" he called out. "Go ahead. But before you do, let me tell you something about humans." The commander tilted his head, curious despite himself. "What could you possibly tell me that I do not already know?" Daniel kept walking, drawing their attention, giving Kira and the others time to reach the ship behind him. "You know that humans are weak. Our bodies are fragile. We have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. We should be easy prey." He stopped a few meters from the commander. "But you also know that humans are dangerous. You have heard the stories. You have seen what we do when we have something to protect." The commander's eyes narrowed. "What is your point?" "My point is this." Daniel's voice grew hard. "I came here to save a mother and her child. I did that. They are going to walk out of here, and there is nothing you can do to stop them." The commander laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You are surrounded. You are wounded. You are alone. How exactly do you plan to stop me?" Daniel smiled, though it was more like a grimace. "I do not have to stop you. I just have to make you think twice." He held the commander's gaze, refusing to look away. "Humans do not forget. If you kill me, if you hurt those people, other humans will come. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually they will find out what happened here, and they will make you pay." The commander stared at him. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Behind Daniel, he heard the Meadowlark's engines powering up. Kira and the others had reached the ship. They were preparing to leave. The commander's soldiers shifted nervously. They had heard the stories too. Everyone in the galaxy had heard stories about humans, about their stubbornness, about their refusal to give up, about the terrible things they did to those who hurt the people they loved. The commander's hand twitched toward his weapon. His black eyes burned with anger. And then a new voice cut through the tension. Korath, Commander, this is Consortium Patrol Vessel Resolute. We have received intelligence regarding illegal operations at this facility. You are ordered to stand down immediately. Failure to comply will result in the use of force. Daniel looked up. Through the docking bay windows, he could see ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Consortium military vessels, their weapons already charging. Talos had done it. He had alerted the authorities. Help had arrived. The commander's face twisted with rage. He looked at Daniel, then at the ships outside, then at his own soldiers. The calculations were obvious. Fight the Consortium and die, or surrender and live. This is not over, human, the commander snarled. Maybe not, Daniel said. But it is over for today. Behind him, the Meadowlark lifted off. Kira's voice came through on his communicator. Daniel, get on the ship, now. He took one last look at the commander, then turned and ran. His legs barely held him. His vision was going dark around the edges. But he made it to the ramp just as the ship began to rise. And Kira pulled him aboard. The Meadowlark shot out of the docking bay and into space. Leaving the Korath facility behind, Daniel collapsed onto the deck, finally letting the pain take him. The last thing he heard before consciousness faded was Yili's voice. Is the brave human going to be okay? He wanted to answer, but the darkness was already pulling him under. The moon of Dreth 4 hung in the void like a dead gray stone. There was no atmosphere, no life, nothing but rock and dust, and the massive facility built into the walls of a crater. The Korath had chosen this place well. It was isolated, defensible, and far from any authority that might interfere with their business. The Meadowlark approached the facility slowly, broadcasting the forged credentials that Kira had created. Daniel sat at the helm, his hands steady on the controls, his face calm despite the fear coiling in his stomach. Beside him, Kira monitored the communication channels, ready to respond to any challenges. Behind them, hidden in a small compartment beneath the floor panels, Yili waited in darkness. Daniel had made her promise to stay there no matter what she heard. The child had not wanted to agree, but she had eventually nodded, trusting him completely. A voice crackled through the speakers. It was harsh and mechanical, belonging to whatever species ran the docking control. Unidentified vessel, state your purpose. Daniel leaned toward the microphone. Cargo hauler Meadowlark, carrying medical supplies and processing equipment. We have a scheduled delivery. There was a pause. Daniel could feel sweat forming on the back of his neck. If the credentials did not hold, if someone looked too closely at their manifest, this would be over before it began. The voice returned. Credentials verified. Proceed to Docking Bay 7. Do not deviate from your assigned path. Any unauthorized movement will be met with lethal force. Understood, Daniel said. Proceeding to Docking Bay 7. He let out a slow breath as the Meadowlark glided toward the facility. The massive doors of the docking bay opened to receive them, and the ship settled onto the landing platform with a gentle thud. Kira looked at him. We are inside. That was the easy part. They ran through the plan one more time. They would pose as delivery inspectors, which would give them an excuse to move through certain parts of the facility. Kira had loaded their datapads with fake work orders and inspection checklists. They had maybe an hour before someone realized the delivery did not match any actual scheduled shipment. After that, alarms would sound, and they would be hunted. Daniel grabbed a toolkit from the cargo hold. It contained a few small weapons hidden among the tools, nothing heavy, but enough to defend themselves if necessary. He hoped it would not come to that. They walked down the loading ramp together, trying to look bored and professional. The docking bay was busy with activity. Workers loaded and unloaded cargo. Guards in dark armor stood at various points, watching everything with cold eyes. The air smelled like metal and chemicals, and somewhere in the distance, Daniel could hear screaming. He forced himself to keep walking. A Karth overseer approached them. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and black eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His voice was smooth and unpleasant. "You are the delivery inspectors?" "That is correct," Daniel said. "We need to verify that the equipment was transported properly. Standard procedure." The overseer studied them for a moment. Daniel could feel those black eyes examining every detail of his face, looking for signs of deception. He kept his expression neutral and waited. "Very well," the overseer said finally. "Proceed with your inspection. Do not enter restricted areas. Do not speak to the merchandise." "Merchandise?" Daniel felt his jaw tighten, but he forced himself to nod. "Understood." They moved through the facility, pretending to check crates and scan equipment. With every step, Daniel studied the layout, comparing it to the maps Talos had provided. The holding cells were in the lower levels. The processing chambers were in the central section. Yili's mother would be somewhere between the two. They passed a corridor lined with reinforced doors. Through small windows, Daniel could see figures inside. Prisoners. Dozens of them, representing species from across the galaxy. Some sat in corners, staring at nothing. Others paced their tiny cells, still fighting against a fate they could not escape. A few looked up as Daniel passed, and he saw the hope die in their eyes when they realized he was not there to save them. He wished he could help them all. But he was one man with limited time and even more limited resources. He could only save one person today. He hoped that would be enough. Kira nudged his arm and nodded toward a door ahead. According to the tactical data, that door led to the pre-processing holding area, where prisoners were kept before being taken to the extraction chambers. If Yili's mother was still alive, she would be there. They approached the door and found it locked with a security panel. Kira pulled out a small device and connected it to the panel. Her fingers moved quickly, and after 30 tense seconds, the door clicked open. Inside, the holding area was larger than Daniel had expected. Rows of cells stretched in both directions, each one containing a prisoner waiting for a terrible fate. Guards patrolled the walkways between the cells, their weapons always ready. Daniel scanned the cells, looking for any sign of a Vishan. Most of the prisoners were from larger species, their bodies valuable for different reasons. But near the back of the room, in a cell barely larger than a closet, he saw a faint blue glow. "There," he whispered to Kira. They moved carefully, staying behind cover, timing their movements to avoid the patrolling guards. It took several minutes to reach the back of the room, and with every second, Daniel expected someone to raise an alarm, but no alarm came. They reached the cell, and Daniel looked inside. A Veshan woman sat against the far wall, her glow dimmed almost to nothing. She was thin and weak, her membrane wings torn and damaged. But she was alive. She looked up as Daniel approached, and her 4 eyes widened with confusion. "Who are you?" she whispered. "My name is Daniel Grant. Your daughter sent me." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Yili? Yili is alive?" "She is safe. She is waiting for you. But we need to move now." Kira was already working on the cell lock. It was more complex than the door had been, and her device struggled against the encryption. Precious seconds ticked away. A guard turned the corner at the far end of the room. He saw them immediately and raised his weapon. Daniel did not think. He grabbed a tool from his kit, one of the hidden weapons, and threw it with all his strength. The tool struck the guard in the head before he could fire. The guard collapsed, his weapon clattering to the floor, but the noise was enough. Other guards turned toward the sound. Shouts echoed through the holding area. Alarms began to wail. "Kira," Daniel said urgently. "Almost there." Her fingers flew across the device. Got it. The cell door opened, and Daniel reached inside to help Saren to her feet. She was weak, barely able to stand, but she forced herself to move. We need to go, Daniel said. Now. They ran toward the exit, but guards were already blocking the way. Daniel counted at least 6 of them, all armed, all moving to intercept. He pushed Saren behind him and raised the only weapon he had left. Stay behind me. The first guard fired. Daniel ducked behind a support column, feeling the heat of the energy blast pass inches from his face. He returned fire, catching the guard in the shoulder. The guard went down, but others took his place. Kira grabbed a fallen guard's weapon and added her own fire to the fight. Together, they managed to hold the corridor, but more guards were coming. Daniel could hear reinforcements approaching from multiple directions. There are too many, Kira shouted. We cannot hold them. Daniel looked around desperately. The exit was blocked. The reinforcements were closing in. In a few minutes, they would be surrounded and captured. Or killed. Then he saw it. A maintenance hatch in the ceiling, just above them. It was small, barely large enough for a person to crawl through. But it was their only chance. Kira, boost me up. She understood immediately. She made a step with her hands, and Daniel climbed onto her shoulders. He reached the hatch and forced it open. Then he reached down and pulled Saren up first. She was light, almost weightless in her weakened state. He pushed her into the shaft and then helped Kira climb up after her. He was pulling himself into the hatch when a blast caught him in the side. Pain exploded through his body, white and blinding. He nearly lost his grip, but Kira grabbed his arms and dragged him into the shaft. Daniel, she said, her voice tight with fear. How bad is it? He looked down at his side. Blood was soaking through his shirt, spreading fast. The wound was deep, and he was already starting to feel dizzy. Bad enough, he said through gritted teeth. But we are not done yet. Keep moving. They crawled through the maintenance shaft, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. Daniel left a trail of blood as he moved, but he did not stop. He could not stop. He had made a promise, and he intended to keep it, even if it killed him. The Meadowlark moved through the darkness between stars. The faster-than-light drive hummed steadily, pushing them toward lawless space at speeds that would have seemed impossible just a few centuries ago. Inside the ship, the air was tense and quiet. Daniel sat in the cockpit, studying the navigation charts on the main display. Dreth 4 was a small moon orbiting a gas giant in a system that no government claimed. It was the perfect location for illegal operations. No patrols. No laws. No one to answer to. Kira dropped into the co-pilot seat beside him. She had been running calculations for the past hour, and her expression told him the results were not good. The facility is built into a crater wall, she said. According to the data I could find, it has external defenses, internal security forces, and only 2 docking points. We cannot fight our way in. We do not have the firepower. Then, we do not fight our way in, Daniel said. We trick our way in. Kira raised an eyebrow. You have a plan? The beginning of one. We need more information first. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his tired eyes. They had been flying for 6 hours, and they still had another 10 to go before reaching Dreth 4. That gave them time to prepare. But it also gave him time to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Yili appeared in the doorway behind them. She had been resting in one of the crew cabins, but sleep had clearly not come easily. Her 4 eyes were red-rimmed, and her small body looked exhausted. Are we close? She asked. Not yet, Daniel said gently. A few more hours. You should try to sleep more. The child shook her head. I cannot sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see them taking her away. Daniel understood that feeling better than she knew. He gestured to the empty seat behind him. Come sit with us then. Yili climbed into the seat and pulled her legs up under her. She watched the stars streaming past on the view screen, her glow dimming slightly as her mood darkened. Why did they take her? She asked quietly. My mother never hurt anyone. She was kind to everyone she met. Kira and Daniel exchanged a glance. It was Kira who answered, her voice softer than usual. The chorus did not care about kindness. They care about profit. Vacian blood contains certain compounds that are valuable on the black market. Some species use them for medicine. Others use them for other things. Yili's wings trembled. They want to hurt her for her blood? Daniel turned in his seat to face the child. We are not going to let that happen. Do you understand? We are going to get her back. The child looked at him with those 4 desperate eyes. Do you promise? Daniel hesitated. Making promises in situations like this was dangerous. There were too many things that could go wrong. But he looked at that small, frightened face, and he could not bring himself to give her anything less than certainty. I promise, he said. Kira shot him a look that said he was being foolish, but she did not contradict him. Instead, she turned back to the console and continued working on their approach plan. 3 hours later, the Meadowlark dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Orbital Station Vera 7's outer communication relay. Daniel had made a decision. They needed help, and he knew exactly where to get it. He opened a secure channel and sent a coded message to a specific frequency. Then he waited. 20 minutes later, a response came through. A face appeared on the view screen, reptilian and scarred, with deep green scales and eyes like polished amber. Commander Talos Vreen of the Rithani military fleet looked down at Daniel with an expression that mixed surprise with irritation. Daniel Grant, Talos said. I wondered when you would call in that favor. Hello, Talos. I need information about the Korath Syndicate facility on Drethfor. Talos let out a low hissing sound that might have been a laugh. Of course you do. Only a human would ask for something like that. What have you gotten yourself into? A rescue mission. A child's mother was taken by slavers. I am going to get her back. Talos stared at him for a long moment. You are serious. Very. The Rithani commander shook his head slowly. I have known many humans over the years. Your species continues to confuse me. You would risk your life for a stranger, for a child of a species that cannot offer you anything in return. This is madness. Maybe, Daniel admitted, but I am still going. Are you going to help me or not? Talos was silent for several seconds. Then he let out another hiss. I owe you a debt. You saved my life when you had no reason to. I do not forget such things. He tapped something on his console. I am sending you tactical data on the Drethfor facility. Guard rotations, internal layouts, security protocols. This is everything my intelligence officers have gathered. The data appeared on Daniel's screen moments later. It was detailed and thorough. Exactly what they needed. Thank you, Talos. Do not thank me yet. This information will help you get inside. Getting out alive is another matter entirely. The Rithani leaned closer to the screen. One more thing. I know someone who might be useful. A Makari information broker named Paz. She has contacts inside the syndicate. If anyone knows the current status of prisoners at that facility, it would be her. Daniel nodded. Where do I find her? Talos sent another data packet. She operates out of a trading post 2 hours from your current position. Be careful. Paz deals in secrets, and secrets have a price. Understood. I owe you one, Talos. You owe me nothing. We are even now. The Rithani paused, his amber eyes studying Daniel through the screen. I hope you succeed, human. What you are doing is either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Perhaps both. The transmission ended, and Daniel immediately adjusted their course toward the trading post. 2 hours later, They docked at a small, grimy station that looked like it had not been cleaned in decades. Daniel left Kira and Yili aboard the Meadowlark and made his way through narrow corridors filled with smoke and strange smells. He found Paz in a back room, surrounded by data screens and blinking lights. The Macari was small, barely reaching Daniel's chest. She had a segmented body covered in dark chitin, multiple limbs, and compound eyes that reflected the glow of her screens. When she spoke, her voice was clicking and precise. A human seeking information about the Korath. How interesting. What do you want to know? I need to know about a Veshan woman who was captured 2 days ago. I need to know if she is still alive and where exactly she is being held. Paz's antennae twitched. Such information is expensive. Daniel placed a credit chip on her desk. It contained most of his savings from the last 6 months. Is this enough? Paz examined the chip with one of her many limbs. It is acceptable. She turned to her screens and began working, her limbs moving with incredible speed. After several minutes, she looked back at him. The Veshan female is still alive. She is scheduled for processing in 18 hours. After that, she will be beyond saving. Daniel felt his chest tighten. 18 hours. Yes, you have very little time. I suggest you move quickly. He was already heading for the door when Paz called out behind him. Human, I have heard stories about your kind. Stories that seem too strange to be true. I wonder if you will prove them right. Daniel did not look back. He was too busy running. 15 minutes later, the Meadowlark was racing toward Drethfor at maximum speed. In the cockpit, Daniel explained the situation to Kira while Yili listened with growing fear. 18 hours, Kira said. That is barely enough time to get there, let alone plan a rescue. Then we plan fast. Daniel pulled up the tactical data from Talos. Here is what I am thinking. The Korath accepts supply deliveries from independent haulers. We pose as one of those deliveries. We get inside, find Yili's mother, and get out before they realize what is happening. Kira stared at him. That is your plan? Pretend to be delivery people? Do you have a better idea? She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. No, I do not. Then let us get to work. For the next several hours, Kira forged credentials while Daniel memorized the facility layout. Yili watched them work, her small hands clasped together, a glow flickering with nervous energy. When the moon of Drethfor finally appeared on the view screen, Daniel looked at it with steady eyes. Somewhere down there, a mother was waiting to be saved. He was not going to let her down. He was not going to fail again. The docking bay of Orbital Station Varus 7 was loud and crowded. Cargo ships came and went every hour. Traders shouted prices across the metal walkways. Aliens of every shape and size moved through the station, each one busy with their own business. Nobody paid attention to anyone else unless there was money involved. Daniel Grant stood beside his ship, the Meadowlark checking the last of the cargo manifests on his datapad. The delivery was complete. Medical supplies had been dropped off. Payment had been received, and now it was time to find the next job. He was a simple man who did simple work. He moved things from one place to another, asked few questions, and kept his head down. That was how he had survived for 15 years in the Outer Territories. Kira Nolan walked down the loading ramp behind him. She was wiping grease from her hands with a rag, her dark hair tied back in a messy knot. She had been his engineer for 3 years now, and she knew the Meadowlark better than he did. She was smart, practical, and never afraid to tell him when he was being stupid. Fuel cells are topped off, she said. We can leave whenever you want. Any idea where we are heading next? Daniel shrugged. There is a mining colony 2 systems over that needs machine parts. Pay is decent. Should take us about 4 days. Kira nodded. Sounds boring. I like boring. Daniel almost smiled. Boring meant safe. Safe meant they would live to see another month. That was good enough for him. He was about to turn back toward the ship when he noticed something small moving between the cargo containers nearby. At first he thought it was an animal, maybe one of the station's pest creatures that sometimes got into the docking bays. But then the shape stepped into the light, and Daniel saw that it was not an animal at all, Dot. It was a child. The little creature stood no higher than Daniel's waist. She had pale blue skin that glowed faintly, like something bioluminescent lived just beneath the surface. 4 large eyes looked up at him, filled with fear and desperation. Thin membrane wings hung from her arms, folded tight against her body. She was shaking. Daniel recognized the species. Veshan. They were a minor race with no real power in the galaxy. Most other species ignored them completely. They were harmless, peaceful, and had nothing valuable to offer the larger civilizations. The child took a step toward him. Her small hands clasped together in front of her chest. "Please," she said in broken common. "Please, brave human, help me." Kira stopped beside Daniel, her eyes narrowing. "What is this?" Daniel held up a hand to quiet her. He crouched down slowly so that he was closer to the child's level. "What is your name?" "Yili," the child whispered. "My name is Yili." "Okay, Yili, what do you need help with?" The words came rushing out of her like water breaking through a dam. "My mother. They took my mother. Bad ones came to our ship. They had weapons. They hurt people. My mother told me to hide. She pushed me into a small space where they could not find me. But they found her. They took her away." Daniel felt something cold settle in his chest. "Who took her?" "The Korath," Yili said. "The ones who steal people." Kira let out a slow breath. "Slavers. The Korath Syndicate." Daniel knew the name. Everyone in the outer territories knew the name. The Korath were one of the largest criminal organizations in the galaxy. They dealt in weapons, drugs, and living beings. They captured people from weaker species and sold them to the highest bidder. Some were used as labor. Others were harvested for biological materials. Nobody challenged them because challenging them meant death. "Kid," Kira said gently, "I'm sorry about your mother, but there is nothing we can do. The Korath are too powerful. We are just cargo haulers." Yili turned her 4 eyes toward Kira, and tears began to spill down her small face. "Everyone says this. Everyone says they cannot help. I asked the station guards. I asked the traders. I asked everyone. They all walk away. They all say the Korath are too strong." She looked back at Daniel. "But you are human. Humans are different. Everyone says humans are strange. Humans do things that make no sense. Humans fight when they should run. Humans help when they should not. Please, you are my last hope." Daniel stared at her for a long moment. He could feel Kira's eyes on him, warning him not to do anything stupid. He could feel the weight of every practical thought in his head telling him to walk away. The Korath would kill them. This was not their problem. They had no connection to this child or her mother. But he could not stop looking at those 4 eyes, so full of desperate hope. "How long ago did they take her?" he asked. "Daniel," Kira said sharply. He ignored her. "How long, Yili?" 2 days, the child said. "I hid on another ship. I came here. I have been looking for help since I arrived. 2 days. That was not long. If the Korath followed their usual pattern, they would transport captives to a processing facility before selling them. That meant Yili's mother might still be alive, might still be saved. Do you know where they took her?" Yili nodded quickly. "I heard them talking before I escaped. They said something about Dreth 4, a moon. They have a place there." Daniel stood up slowly. His knees ached. His back was sore. He was not young anymore, and he had no business doing what he was about to do. But he looked down at that small, glowing child, and he thought about all the times in his life when someone should have helped and no one did. "Okay," he said. "I will help you." Yili's eyes went wide. "You will? Daniel, are you out of your mind?" Kira grabbed his arm. "Dreth 4 is in lawless space. The Korath have an entire operation there. We would be walking into a death trap." "Probably," Daniel agreed. "Then why?" He looked at her, and something old and tired moved behind his eyes. "Because someone should." Kira stared at him for a long moment. She knew that look. She had seen it before, in the quiet hours when Daniel thought no one was watching. There was a story there, a wound that had never healed. She did not know the details, but she knew it drove him in ways he never talked about. She let out a long, frustrated sigh. "Fine, but if we die, I'm going to be very angry with you." Daniel almost smiled. "Fair enough." He turned back to Yili and extended his hand. The child looked at it in confusion for a moment, then slowly placed her small hand in his. Her skin was cool and smooth, and she was still trembling. "Come on," Daniel said. "Let us go get your mother." As they walked up the ramp into the Meadowlark, Kira muttered under her breath about humans and their terrible decisions. Behind them, a Rethani trader watched the scene with his reptilian eyes. He had seen many things in his long life, but humans still surprised him. No other species would do what this one was doing. It was madness, or perhaps, he thought, it was something else entirely. The Meadowlark's engines hummed to life, and the ship lifted off from the docking bay. Within minutes, it was gone, heading toward the darkness of lawless space where no sane being would willingly go. And at the helm, a tired human cargo hauler plotted a course toward a moon called Dreth 4, carrying with him a frightened child and a promise he intended to keep.